can smile now. Some of the best drivers in the world have found checkered flags hard to come by. Chip Robinson has seen 10 straight disappointments.
You know, points. We got to finish races if we're going to win the championship. For them.
3 weeks ago at Watkins Glen came the low point when a broken suspension put Robinson into the wall. Jeff Brabham and Elliott Forbes Robinson won in March in Miami in their Nissan ZX Turbo, but they've crashed the car twice since.
We have to prove we can fit. Yeah, ever since Miami. But the guy's done a lot of work to the car. Bridgestone's done some work to the tires, and we believe that the car is ready for this weekend.
The biggest bang thus far. Verba and Doc Bundy and their Corvette came at West Palm Beach.
The old saying, if we didn't have bad luck, we wouldn't have any luck. Well, that's the way our year has been going.
Frenchman Bob Wallace has put the BF Goodrich Porsche 962 on the road to victory lane, but they have yet to arrive there.
We haven't been very lucky in the races. I mean, I did a major mistake at West Palm Beach leading, and this would have been a win. And Mid-Ohio, we had some problems during the race, and Riverside as well. So, I mean, of course, we deserve a win.
With just 6 races to go this season, the towering pines of the Pacific Northwest will form the backdrop, and the checkered flag awaits in the shade of brooding Mount St. Helens. ESPN, the world leader in motorsports coverage, presents Speedworld. And a beautiful day it is in the Pacific Northwest, particularly in the Rose City of Portland, Oregon. Hello, everyone. I'm Bob Varsha, welcoming you to Portland International Raceway, scene of today's G.I. Joe's 300-kilometer race for IMSA Camel GT prototype and Camel Lights cars. Now, if there's only one Camel GT race you're going to watch all year long, this is the one to see, because for the past 9 years, the winner of this race has gone on to win the Camel Drivers' Championship. With me to provide commentary today, America's Cup skipper and Camel GT racer Tom Blackaller. And Tom, it's going to be a heck of a race.
It's going to be a very good race. As you said, the winner here has gone on to win the championship of IMSA for about 9 years in a row. So Chip Robinson, who's leading now, is really under some pressure. He's put his Porsche in the front row alongside of the Nissan, which is very, very fast. But I think Robinson's going to have a heck of a race today and do a really good job. I think he did a great job in qualifying. All the other Porsches are close behind, and it should be very, very competitive.
Also joining us in the booth today, Camel GTO racer Lynn St. James. And Lynn, at 300 kilometers, that's a pretty short race.
It is. From a driver's perspective, Portland is a very special race because it provides an opportunity for solo drives. It's a cool day, it's a short racetrack, it's a fast racetrack, and it's a relatively easy racetrack to drive. So everybody is going to be able to drive it themselves, and I think that kind of motivates. It gets everybody charged up a little more. The adrenaline is flowing, so I think that it's one of our favorite events.
Patrolling pit road for us today will be Gary Lee and Marty Reid. As Tom mentioned, we had some surprises in qualifying, and for more on that, let's go down to Gary.
Thank you, Bob. Good afternoon. By far, the best job in qualifying was turned in by By his own admission, the best he could start was 4th behind. However, he out-qualified the vets despite the fact they were 10 to 14 miles an hour faster down the front straightaway. But don't be too surprised if the vets come from the second row to dice for the lead, with the Nissan making it a 3-car battle, and Chip will be very content to ride back there in 4th position. There's another great aspect of this race. There's a battle for the national championship in the Camel Light division. Here with more on that is our colleague, Marty Reid.
Thanks, Gary. Hello again, everyone. Nowhere else in IMSA racing is the points battle tighter than it is right here in the Camel Lights division. This man, Jim Downing, driving the Mazda-Argo, is leading despite the fact he has yet to win a race this season. He's got 119 points, but there are 3 drivers within 3 points right behind him. One of them, Chip Mead, in second place in the Porsche-Fabcar, starting a little bit further back. Then there's Don Bell right next to Jim Downing. He's third in the points, and then fourth, right behind Don Bell, will be Steve Durst in the starting field. What's going to be interesting in this race is that the Fieros say that they are going to be able to go the distance without stopping. Jim Downing on a Mazda, though, he's going to have to make at least 1 pit stop.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. 2 races in 1. The cars have moved to the grid, and in just a few short moments, we'll be ready to turn them loose around the 1.9-mile Portland International Raceway. We'll be back to take a look at the Portland International Raceway, set the field, and start racing here in Portland in just a moment.
Can your motor oils survive the punishment today's engines dish out? Circulating it twice as fast, working it twice as hard, breaking it down and causing it to lose its viscosity. That's why you need an oil with the additive that does more to help prevent viscosity breakdown. Castrol XLR, the oil engineered for today's cars. Look for Castrol XLR at these and other leading retailers.
The CSL on TSN. Enjoy live coverage of regular season games, plus playoff action and the championship final. Next up, East meets West when the Calgary Kickers meet the powerhouse Hamilton Steelers. TSN's Vic Router handles the play-by-play, and Graham Leggett adds all the color. Join us Sunday, August 16th when the Hamilton Steelers host the Calgary Kickers.
As the cars roll off the grid to warm up for today's race, let's take a look at this 1.9-mile course. Lynn, why don't you start us off?
Well, as we head down that start-finish straightaway, the GTP cars will top out at about 180+ miles an hour. Then we have a long, fast right-hand turn, turn 1 and 1A, second gear. Then we've got another turn 2, stay in second gear all the way through this section. Then we've got a left-hand turn, one of the few left-hand turns on the racetrack, still in second gear. Then we've got a right-hand turn 4. This is very important because it's a series of turns as we have our left-right heading onto the back straightaway. Tom, take us down the back straight.
We go down the back straight at about 160 miles an hour into a quick left-right chicane before setting up for turn 9, which is the most important turn on the course because it gives us the speed to come out around turn 9 and onto the front straight.
Okay, with that, let's take a look at the way the field will line up for today's race. And as we mentioned at the top of the show, there were some surprises in qualifying. But no surprise on the pole for the second year with his second straight record, Australia's Jeff Brabham in the fiery fast Nissan GTP ZX Turbo, alongside a pensive Chip Robinson, a surprise taking the outside front row in his Porsche 962. Inside row 2, all Corvette, Cyril Vandermerwe, the South African, now living in Indianapolis. He is in the number 22 Corvette GTP, alongside his teammate, Georgia's Doc Bundy, his mount, the number 52 Corvette GTP Turbo. On the inside of row 3 will be Bob Wallach of France, sharing our camera car, the number 67 BF Goodrich Porsche. Outside row 3 will be Whitney Gantz. His car owner, that is, Giampiero Moretti, will start the number 30 Momo Buick March. Inside row 4, we'll have the National IndyCar champion, Bobby Rahal, in the number 86 Bayside Racing Porsche 962. Outside on row 4 will be Price Cobb. In the thick of the points battle, he will start the number 16 Dyson Racing Porsche 962. Inside row 5 will be Los Angeles, California's Jim Adams in the number 10 Wins Porsche. And outside row 5, Bruce Levin in the second team car. That will be the number 85 Bayside Racing Porsche 962. Looking at the rest of the field, inside row 6 will be the pole sitter in the Camel Lights class, Jeff Klein. He'll share with Tom Winters. Outside will be Neil Shelton. Inside of row 7 will be the Camel Lights champion, Jim Downing, in a Mazda-powered Argo. A bit of a surprise ahead of the number 3 man in the points race in Camel Lights, Don Bell, in a Pontiac Fiero. Inside row 8, Jim Rothbarth in yet another Fiero, alongside Steve Durst in a Pontiac Fiero as well. Inside row 9 will be Chip Mead in a Porsche-powered Fabcar. He's the runner-up in Camel Lights points, alongside Steve Katz in a Chevy-powered Tiger Racer. Row 10 will have Tom Phillips starting off in a Porsche-powered Fabcar, alongside Kim Campbell and Al Mitchell sharing a Mazda-Argo. And the last car in line, the 21st entrant, George Petrolak in a Buick-powered Argo. We'll be back for the start of the 300-kilometer G.I. Joe's Grand Prix right after.
When it comes to quenching your deep down body thirst after exercise, you know what you want. No carbonation, nothing too sweet, something with a light, crisp taste. Which perfectly describes just one thing, Gatorade, for that deep down body thirst. Nothing else is in the running.
Flushing Meadow, New York, late summer, great tennis. Following the Players International, the tennis world moves south of the border, and TSN will be there for the 1987 U.S. Open. Join us for daily coverage from the U.S. Open, live from Flushing Meadow, New York, starting September the 1st. The U.S. Open here on TSN.
And the field comes off the turn, led by pole sitter Jeff Brabham with the Nissan. The green flag is out, and we're racing here at Portland in the drag race down the long front straightaway to Brabham, followed by Chip Robinson and the number 22 of Cyril van der Merwe, the Corvette, and he goes by Robinson as well into turn one.
Robinson really tried to get his position there, but the Corvette still got by.
So it is Brabham, van der Merwe, Robinson in the Corvette, and Bob Wallach in a Porsche in fourth position as they start their first lap. Doc Bundy is in fifth place, and Bobby Rahal and Bruce Levin's red and white Porsche is in sixth. Gently they make their way through turns 4 and 5, and then they'll go up through the gearbox on the long back straightaway. Rahal taking a look there inside Bundy, and now outside Bundy. And down the backside, looks like Bobby Rahal will challenge, but a quick gap being opened up by Jeff Brabham of the Nissan. Who could forget the race they ran last year when Brabham went the entire way and ran out of gas with 1 lap to go and a 7-second lead.
Robinson's Porsche has been faster in the turns than the Nissan and the Corvette GTP, but down the straight, the Nissan and the Corvette have those very, very strong turbo motors. And here you see Robinson struggling to draft Cyril van der Merwe in the 22 Corvette.
Cyril was everywhere trying to keep him from drafting, but Chip's right behind him.
That's a very good move on Chip's part. If he can stay behind the Corvette GTP on the straights, he'll be able to be right in the race for a long, long time.
And drafting is what it's going to take. The Corvettes were topping 188 miles an hour down that long front straightaway. Chip Robinson's Porsche capable of about 10 miles an hour less than that.
The Nissan's pulling out a nice lead, particularly when it gets back into the handling section of the racetrack. Besides being very quick on the straightaway, the Nissan in all the splits around the racetrack was also the quickest all through the handling section. So, I mean, they're pulling that lead in the handling section, and, you know, now they get to go on to the straightaway, and they're pretty powerful as well.
And in back, you see, it looks like Bryce Cobb making the move on Doc Bundy in the second Corvette. Bobby Rahal has already gotten by, so Rahal will take over fourth spot in the race, fifth spot behind Bob Wallach, and behind him is Bryce Cobb, who is charging hard, and Doc Bundy seems to be fading as you see Jean-Pierre Moretti in that yellow and red Momo Buick March going by.
Either they've got the boost turned way down on the 52 Corvette GTP, or there's something wrong with their power plant, because Moretti and Bryce Cobb went right on by him. And here we see Rahal with Bryce Cobb chasing him. Bryce Cobb is right in the point standings with Chip Robinson, and really doesn't want to see Rahal in front of him.
It was said in the pits that the Corvettes might do this. 2 cars in the race, they could gear one up to go flat out and try to run everybody else into the ground, especially that Nissan and Jeff Brabham, but that the other car could be detuned, as they say, made to go for gas mileage and hopefully scoring points in today's race.
That gas mileage is a good point, Bob, because the Corvette might have to stop twice where everybody else would stop once if they run the boost high on that 22 car of Cyril van der Merwe, because he sure won't save fuel himself.
For the Budweiser car with Bobby Rahal and Bryce Cobb, seeing the 2 Porsche 962s just seem to be running right next to each other. Very, very, very equal in the handling section as well as equal on the straightaway, so they should be having a very good race there.
The Indy 500 champion from 1985, Bobby Rahal out of Dublin, Ohio, has raced 3 times for Bruce Levin's Bayside Motorsports operation out of Washington. This, after all, is their home track. In those 3 races, Bobby Rahal, team West German endurance ace Jochen Maas, has finished first twice and second once. Not a bad average. Nice see Ray Hall opening up a little bit of a gap. The first lap, very, very quick. As Jeff Brabham leads the field around at just over a minute per lap. There you see Ray Hall with Bryce Cobb close behind on the backstretch. Down the backstretch into number 7 through turn 8. And now here's where they will downshift, getting down into second gear before climbing back up through the gearbox. Let me correct myself. Bobby Rahal is the 86th Indy 500 champion.
Here's Rahal trying to duck away from Bryce Cobb, but Bryce Cobb tucks in behind him and is drafting down the straight to make sure he doesn't lose any distance at all. Looks like the number 86 car is running a little bit better than Bryce Cobb down the straightaway.
Bobby Rahal doing well, leading Bryce Cobb. There you see them in 5th and 6th positions. A couple of little speed tweaks done to the Rahal car by the Levin organization. Now here's the battle of the lights. The red car to the right, number 63.
Very surprising.
Mazda-Argo, that's Jim Downing out of Atlanta, Georgia.
Very surprising to see the Mazda-powered car leap out in front of those Fieros who have known to have straight line speed. That's the tail-end GTP car, the 1983 March with a Porsche motor driven by Neil Shelton. Is in between the first and second place cars in Camel Light. And here is Downing shown leading Camel Lights. Downing has done obviously something to his Mazda engine to give it extra power for this Portland track.
Now, what we were told before the race is that the Pontiac Fieros, the horsepower kings of the Camel Lights race, were going to make no stops on the route to this 180-mile distance. Jim Downing is expected to make a stop, and that's a switch from the normal pattern. Meanwhile, here is Chip Robinson of the number 14 Lowenbrow Porsche, hounding Cyril van der Merwe's number 22 Corvette. You saw there how Chip is able to close up in the turns. Obviously, a little bit better handling on the Porsche than the Corvette is able to get in these tight, low-speed Portland turns.
Actually, I'm surprised how the Corvette is really staying with the Porsche on the turning section. I mean, it doesn't appear at this point that Chip really has an edge, and I thought he would have one back in the handling section. But he may have it tuned differently than he did for qualifying.
Let's go down to pit road where Gary Lee has a comment.
Let's address that strategy now on the part of the Corvettes. When we talked to the Corvettes about the poor qualifying by their own standards yesterday, I was told that both cars were detuned to a race setup, meaning they say they lost about 100 horsepower in qualifying. There was some thought that they would detune even more one of the cars, because at a race setup with all the horsepower, they would have to make 2 pit stops. If they detune one car, meaning cranking the boost down, one car could go on only 1 stop. However, I was assured this morning before the race they didn't do that. They were going to run the higher boost. However, I'm beginning to think just maybe Doc Bundy has less boost. He's going to go the route with 1 stop. Sarl will be out in front chasing the Nissan, but he'll have to make 2.
Right now, Sarl's having a tough time chasing the Nissan. He's got his work cut out for him, keeping Chip Robinson off his tail. Robinson closed up about 3 car lengths under braking into turn 1, meaning the brakes on the Porsche are working better. However, this will be an hour and 3/4 race, and if Chip works the brakes that hard the whole time, could be that they'll fade a little bit. But right now, the number 14 Lowenbrow Porsche driven by Chip Robinson is really right behind Cyril van der Merwe.
Now here's a look from our in-car camera in the 67 BF Goodrich. Bob Wallach of Strasbourg, France is your chauffeur, and he is looking straight up ahead down this long straightaway up into 5th gear, reaching speeds in excess of 175, 180 miles an hour before braking hard and going back down through the gearbox for turn 1.
It's an incredibly long straightaway, and then you've really got to get the car slowed down, but it's a very fast turn 1 there. There's that double apex turn, and that now you've got the only left-hander, so a lot of times you set the cars up to really favor the right-hand turns, and it can be very difficult going through this left-hander. Bob doesn't seem to be having a problem at all. He's coming up on a light car here, so that his closing speed is very great, but you can see how narrow it is, so you can't just go bursting by.
Very hard to pass.
You've got to wait until you go into that little exiting that last turn going onto the back chute before you can pass. That's not really a straightaway either. You can see how there's a constant radius sweeping left-hand turn.
In 4th place, you're riding with Bob Wallach and over the curb on the left side and over the curb on the right side as Bob Wallach tries to force that Porsche up into contention.
He probably hit that curb on the inside of 9. Those are the only 3 curbs you can hit here. The other ones you can't.
There's a look back, and Chip has gotten around Cyril van der Merwe, so now it's a drag race. Porsche and Corvette. You saw it from the in-car just as they turned through 9 and onto the straightaway. Chip got by, but there's an example of the horsepower superiority that Corvette has over the 4-year-old Porsche 9:62.
An incredible thing right now is that the Nissan already has about a 10-second lead on the Corvette, so that it's just pulled out and is pulling a tremendous lead. So this is the battle here for second place.
Well, that is really a brazen move by the Nissan crew. Last year they had a 7-second lead when they ran out of gas on the last lap. Either they have made gigantic strides in their gas mileage, or they're going at it with all of the bravery that they showed last year. One would assume that they know that they're going to have that extra drip of fuel at the end this year. Just a couple of liters, one lap of this 2-mile track. Less than a gallon of fuel was all that separated Jeff Brabham and the Nissan from victory last year. There you see Cyril van der Merwe leading Chip Robinson, second and third place in the race, and we'll be back to Portland, Oregon in a moment.
This year, every time I strike out a batter, I'll be helping strike out a disease that affects hundreds of thousands of Canadians. The disease is Elliottitis and colitis. Someone you know is suffering, and the pain is real. Now, every time my teammate or I strike out a batter, these corporate sponsors will make a contribution to strike out Elliottitis and colitis. You can help too. For more information, call the CFIC office in your area.
Saturday on the Sports Network. Live at 2, it's Major League excitement when baseball's best battle on the game of the week. At 5, the very best in equestrian events, the Grand Prix and the Nations Cup from Hickstead, England. Then live at 8, Budweiser presents the Eddie Reid Stakes from Del Mar Park. Sunday on TSN, don't miss a great NFL preseason matchup when the Bears battle the Dolphins live from Miami's new Joe Robbie Stadium.
There you see the leader in the G.I. Joe's Grand Prix at Portland International Raceway. That is Australian IndyCar ace Jeff Brabham. And he has got virtually a straightaway lead at this point as he just motors away from the field in this IMSA Camel GT race.
He's pulling away at about 1 second a lap, which means if he keeps that pace, he'll lap the field by the time the race is half over.
And he's turning a minute 1 was one of his recent laps, which is an average speed of about 112 miles an hour. It's about 3 seconds a lap slower than he can actually turn from a qualifying, so he's really cruising.
Here you see a battle between Bob Wallach. Look at him work there. You're right inside the office with Bob Wallach as he does battle with Chip Robinson just ahead of him in the number 14 Holbert Racing Lowenbrow Special Porsche.
Second, third, fourth, and fifth are really close, so Bob's not only having to try to chase Chip, but he's got Bobby Rahal right on behind him, so he's busy out there.
That's right. Right now, Rahal and Wallach are pulling up on Chip Robinson. Chip has gone back a little from his pace that had put him right on the tail of Cyril van der Merwe, and there you see the 67 Porsche of Bob Wallach coming right up behind Chip Robinson in the 14 Porsche.
Bob Wallach came to this team this year, and he has made a dramatic difference on the team. Car owner Jim Busby will say having the guy here has really brought up team morale. It's been a long time since they've had a victory. The car is much faster now where they ever were before. They have a new chassis built by Mr. Jim Chapman out in California. As you look at Bobby Rahal with his lights turned on, he wants to make sure that everybody in front of him can see him in the mirrors.
It's something that a number of the drivers will do. You don't see it too often, but it certainly does get the attention of if somebody looks in the mirror, boy, they see those headlights, and it just really it makes them, you know, take notice that somebody's behind them, and you can also see them much further behind you. So once in a while, you see a driver do that. I know Peter Gregg used to do it all the time.
Well, if you're wondering what's going on in the mind of the camp of Chip Robinson, Gary Lee is standing by with the all-time winningest driver in the Camel GT, Al Holbert.
And a race driver is always ready to race. He has the driving suit on. I think he has no plans, however, right now to be in the cockpit. What is the strategy now? We know Chip said he really could not dice with the vet if the vet had the boost turned up. For several laps, he did. Now it apparently he's backed off a little bit.
Well, not really. The Corvette's holding us up quite a bit. We're running as quick as the leader, but when Chip gets close to the Corvette, the Corvette holds him up in the corners and blows him off on the straightaway. So he's just going to have to wait and dog him as long as he can.
Perhaps wait for the vet to make a mistake?
Well, I don't think you can count on Cyril making many mistakes. You might catch him in traffic and if you can catch him up at the top end in traffic, get a second or two on him, you can hold him off on the straightaway. And you're just going to have to be close in order to take advantage.
But once it gets by, will he make a run, an attempt at a run at the Nissan?
Well, for sure. He can, you know, right now he's running the same lap time as a Nissan when he's clear. But, you know, the Nissan sure has something in reserve. But we'll never know unless you get pressure.
All right, there's the situation from the guy who owns the team and has no intentions of racing this afternoon. He'll keep a stopwatch on Chip Robinson.
And there you see Chip Robinson right now in a sandwich between Cyril van der Merwe as they do a little lapping. Behind him is Bob Wallach, and that's what it looks like from Bob Wallach's perspective as he tries to get the drop on Chip Robinson, who in turn is trying to get the drop on Cyril van der Merwe. You noticed behind Al Holbert's head a moment ago that the clouds are hanging very low as Bob Wallach goes inside Chip. Now here's where the track narrows down. He's going to have to try and outbrake him into that tight turn one, and he's got it done.
Absolutely. He took that inside move, and even though you really want to be on the outside for that turn, he was, Chip gave him a clear opportunity to get by.
And that puts Bob Wallach up into third place behind van der Merwe. The Nissan is out front and gone. I mentioned the clouds behind Al Holbert and Gary Lee as they conducted that interview. It is cool here. Temperature just about 70 degrees, I'd say. The humidity about 75%. And Lynn, I would think that would be very, very good for these turbocharged cars.
Ideal racing temperature, not only for the turbos, but for the tires, for the drivers. It is called ideal temperature. Everybody's happy. The car's happy and the driver's happy.
Looks like Bob Wallach is going to make a run at Cyril van der Merwe here. Wallach has come up from being about 200 yards behind the Robinson-van der Merwe race, and now he has got his sights set on the number 22 Corvette GTP of Cyril van der Merwe.
We saw him slide out of there. He is typical Bob Wallach style, driving everything, getting everything he can out of that car. He just slid. The rear tires just slid, and he had a little bit of oversteer as he was coming out of there, but kept the power down.
Wallach and the BFG team have worked very, very hard on their tires. They've been testing. They took time off from races to do a 4 or 5 week test session, and it looks like it's paid off because they are right on the pace here.
I asked Jim Busby how much it meant to have Bob Wallach with his team. Busby said, well, let me put it this way. He is French, which makes him sometimes a little bit hard to deal with, but everybody on the team realizes his passion for what he is doing. And what Bob Wallach has brought to this team is a masterful knowledge of how to set up the Porsche 962. With that knowledge, he is able to get it into third place.
Do you spend hours cleaning your good silver? Trying to rub and scrub it clean with an abrasive paste or liquid? Now there's a better way. Deep Luster Instant Silver Cleaner. Just watch these amazing demonstrations. Deep Luster is the quickest, safest, easiest way to remove tarnish. All it takes is Deep Luster crystals dissolved in water and this incredible zinc wand. Just touch your silver to this amazing wand. Instantly, the tarnish disappears. Simply rinse and you're done. It's that easy. Deep Luster is completely safe for gold, precious stones, and all fine jewelry. Clean one piece or several all at the same time. Deep Luster is perfect even for those items you thought impossible to clean. Your complete Deep Luster kit can be used over and over again. It's an amazing value at $7.95.
Credit card customers call toll-free 1-800-255-8400. That's 1-800-255-8400. Or send $7.95 for one complete kit or $11.95 for 2 kits, plus $2 postage and handling to Deep Luster. Box 501 TSN, Unionville, Ontario.
Working lap 18 of a scheduled 97, and this man, Jeff Brabham, is absolutely making a mockery out of a great, great international distance racing field. With the Nissan, his lead is now 17.5 seconds over Cyril van der Merwe in second place. As you watch the Nissan go by, there is van der Merwe in the black and silver Corvette, followed by the number 67 Porsche of Bob Wallach. Behind him, Chip Robinson, the battle for second place in the race. Marty Lee is standing by on pit road with more.
We're down in Cyril van der Merwe's pit. They're on the dry tires right now. You guys mentioned the possibility that the clouds were rolling in, and they are. Overhead, it's looking very threatening. The rain tires are ready, and the reason we're in van der Merwe's pit because the acknowledged leader as far as rain tire driving is Cyril. Could be an advantage for the Corvettes if it does get wet out here.
Another advantage, by the way, would be that they would get increased fuel mileage, and they might not be able to have to make that second stop.
Now there you see the number 10 wins Porsche, maybe the prettiest car in the field today, being driven by Jim Adams. Adams, a financial consultant out of Los Angeles, California. And he is making his way around in ninth position on the racetrack. Excuse me. Sorry to cough there. There you see the number 30 car in, that's Giampiero Moretti. If it looks familiar to some of you IMSA Camel GT fans out there, it used to be the March fielded by Phil Conti out of Southern California for John Paul Jr. and Whitney Gantz. But Giampiero Moretti, who owns the Momo Auto Parts business in Italy, bought the car to enter it in this race.
That's Ian Dawson, who was my crew chief last year on the Zaxby program. So he's taken over the program. This does not look like a scheduled pit stop at all. It looks like a problem. They've changed tires, and they can't seem to get the door closed for some unknown reason. So this is an unfortunate pit stop for them this early in the race.
We're back into the race now for second place with the number 22 car of Cyril Vandermeer leading 67 Bob Wallach, with number 14 Chip Robinson right behind. So it's a three-car train for second place, and I'm surprised Wallach hasn't made a further move. He came up quite a ways behind, but now he seems to be content to just shadow Cyril Vandermeer for a while.
I'm not sure he's content with it. Maybe he just can't do much else about it. I think he's driving so hard that he got there, but I don't think he's really got anything in reserve that he could probably do much more about getting past him.
That's interesting. It looked like his momentum would take him right on by, but he just got up there and sort of stopped. They're passing the 01 Fiero of Don Bell, and here comes Wallach by Bell, and also Chip Robinson going by, and on down into turn 1.
Traffic could be an advantage, but unfortunately when they get on the straightaway, Cyril's got that horsepower so that it really doesn't become the disadvantage for him that it would be for another car.
There's a good look at the 01 car of Don Bell. Now he is in third place in the tightest driving championship battle in all of IMSA racing, and the tightest IMSA has ever seen. 4 points separate the top 4 drivers. Jim Downing, our class leader right now, leads by a point over Chip Mead, who is in this race. Don Bell is in third place, and there is Don with Bobby Rahal all over him trying to get by. Bell moves over to the right and lets Rahal move on past.
In that back part of the course, it's almost impossible to pass. You can see the 01 car, which is much slower than Bobby Rahal's 962 Porsche, but Bobby couldn't get by. He made a couple of tries at it, but he just couldn't make it.
That Camel Lights battle is one that we'll keep a close eye on. That is a Pontiac Fiero built by Spice Engineering in England, and the rumor has it that the Fieros, of which there are 4 in today's field, are prime candidates to move up to GTP ranks next year. They'll go from about 350 horsepower to close to 600 horsepower to do some GTP racing. And there you see, in line, you see Cyril Vandermeer's Corvette, followed by Bob Wallach in the BF Goodrich, our camera car, the Porsche 962, followed by Chip Robinson in another Porsche. And there is the look that Bob Wallach gets of the back of Cyril Vandermeer.
Bob Wallach made a little bit of a look to the inside of Cyril at the entrance of turn 1, but again, he's gone all the way through the backside of the course. Very, very hard to pass there. Now they're out on the sweeping back straight, and you can see Cyril just sort of drifting away there. It's kind of like a rubber band that stretches and stretches.
It makes it so tough because, you know, you can get by maybe. He could even get by maybe on the infield, but then it's sort of like, well, when you do, you know you're going to get blown by on the straightaway. So this is probably the best thing he can do, is to dog him and to be right on him through all the turns and then just run it the best he can down the straight chute.
That's interesting, and he doesn't seem to be able to stay in the draft. The Corvette just moves on away. But right here at the end of the front straight, going down into turn 1, you'll see him come right up behind. There's Wallach intently driving the car through the right-hand turn 1 and 2.
And watch how his hands work. Notice how little steering it actually takes to turn these cars at better than 100 miles an hour.
He doesn't have to turn much, but I'll tell you, that wheel is fighting for all it's worth. I mean, it's pulling down. It does not want to turn, so you've got to put a lot of force. He's got a lot of force in his forearms right now as he puts that turn into it.
Wallach is a great driver, but he's not going to be much of a TV star. He never looks at the camera.
Please, Bob, don't look at the camera. You see him sweating. Not many of the drivers have opted for cool suits, as you watch the trees absolutely flash by the driver's side door in that Porsche. They thought it was cool enough to go without them, and so heat might very well be a factor late in the day if the clouds part, as they have a couple of the days we've been here in Portland. It could get very hot indeed for Bob Wallach and the rest of the drivers in today's field. There is the look as Bob Wallach waves goodbye to Cyril Vandermeer.
Can your motor oil take the heat? When today's engines reach high running temperatures, motor oil can thin out, break down, and leave engine surfaces unprotected. But Castrol XLR has been engineered to maintain a lubricating film, even at extreme engine temperatures. At Castrol, we believe if you can't take the heat, get out of the engine. Castrol XLR, the oil engineered for today's cars. Look for Castrol XLR at these leading retailers.
North America's finest trotters and pacers, TSN's exclusive coverage of the $5 million Breeders' Crown Championship Series continues from Northfield Park in Ohio. The $250,000 race is open to aged trotting mares 4 years old and up. The Breeders' Crown, harness racing's ultimate championship test. Our next race in the series is from the Northfield Park in Ohio, Friday, September the 4th, live at 11 p.m. Eastern on TSN.
Last year, the big Winston Cup cars of the NASCAR circuit went to Watkins Glen, one of the world's great racetracks, and what a race it was, a spectacular. Any day of the week. I think any of these racers would like to have the kind of lead that Jeff Brabham has right now. He is more than 20 seconds out in front. In fact, he is 26 seconds out in front in this incredible Nissan ZX Turbo. Let's go down to Gary, who's standing by with Jeff Brabham's teammate.
And he has to be the happiest guy in the pit area because your teammate has a 26-second lead. Now, you're planning on stopping for fuel about lap 52. I have to ask you, is he going to get out? Are you going to get a chance to drive?
Well, Jeff told me that he might have trouble with his seatbelt out there, so I'm worried about that. But then I told him that my job was to grab the epaulets and help him out, and told him it would be much easier with a seatbelt undone.
So you will be in the race car?
That's the plan, yeah.
Now, last year, of course, he feels like he has something to prove because he ran out of fuel in the very last lap, only because he didn't get a full fuel load on that one stop last year.
That's correct, and we had a small tank in the car last year. We have a larger fuel tank in the car. We feel there's no problem going the distance this year, but the hard part is probably going to get him out. He's running so well today.
It's obvious what the strategy is. Get in and go as flat out as you can.
Indeed, Jeff Brabham must be going flat out. He was running laps close to 1 minute. That used to be the qualifying record here at Portland International Raceway. Although things have not gone totally rosy for this team this weekend, yesterday I saw them dunking their tires. They were having a problem losing air. Turned out it wasn't their Bridgestone tires, it was the wheels those tires were mounted on. So what did they do? What any kid who ever had a bicycle and was wondering about his tire pressure does, dunked it in water and looked for little bubbles. They picked the wheels that were not losing their welds, and right now Jeff Brabham is using 4 of those wheels to absolutely motor away from the field here in the G.I. Joe's Grand Prix.
He's doing that even though he's 2 seconds a lap off his qualifying pace. Here's the Lights leader, number 63, Jim Downing. Very surprising on this horsepower track. Jim has the little Mazda motor up against the Fieros, and he's doing very, very well. He's done a lot of work on that motor. He qualified second, and now he's leading the race very easily over the 3 or 4 Fieros behind him.
Jim Downing with a great race from my hometown, Atlanta, Georgia. Let's go down to pit road and Marty Reid.
Well, guys, you were mentioning Jim Downing. We talked about him at the beginning of the race, saying he would probably have to stop at least once. The team is now telling us that they're going to try and push it the maximum to see if they can go the distance without fuel. The big question mark in the bottom end of it could be, though, tires. They are running a softer compound, and that could be the reason for the big lead right now.
In fact, tires have been a story throughout the weekend here. The Goodyear people brought 2 compounds for the Camel Lights competitors to choose from and ran out of the softer compound. Tires apparently not a concern of the race teams unless, of course, you don't have the compound that you're looking for.
Downing very rarely leads races in the early start. You can see he's really pushing hard. All 4 wheels locked up going into turn 1. That's a qualifying type pace, and it's very unusual to see Downing in the lead early in a race in the Lights division.
Well, Jim Downing, the 2-time champion of this class, he built the first of these lightweight, more economical prototypes. He named them Camel Lights cars, and he is the only champion this division has ever had. He says he does not want to be the first champion, however, to win a championship without ever winning a race. After finishing 8th of the 24 Hours Daytona, he has never been worse than 4th, and he has finished all previous 10 races. Here is the battle once again, the second place battle, as Cyril van der Merwe and Bob Wallach continue to circulate around this 1.9-mile Portland International Raceway.
Wallach seems to have pulled a little bit of a lead out over Chip Robinson. I don't see him on our screen here, and I think he's just got there. It's just Chip right there at the back, so he's pulled a little bit of a lead.
Yeah, Chip's fading back just a little bit, and Wallach is still doggedly chasing Cyril van der Merwe, and I'm surprised he hasn't gotten any closer. They're having quite a good race. Now they're starting to lap some slower Camel Lights cars.
And traffic will certainly help Chip Robinson. Traffic might, in fact, be the reason that he is a few car lengths back from where he was a few laps ago. but they remain in second, third, and fourth place. Cyril van der Merwe out of South Africa, a 9-time South African National Rally champion, a man who once spent 1.5 million air travel miles in 1 year, racing in 3 motorsports series on 5 continents. What kind of frequent traveler mileage you suppose you'd rack up spending that much time in the air on somebody else's nickel?
Not only that, I heard that they lost his luggage coming over here, and I don't think they've ever found it yet. So he's
Now, traveling is one of the real tough parts that these race car drivers have to endure. They travel hundreds of thousands of miles a year. They're in different places every week. But it's all for the love of the sport. Getting in one of these GTP cars going 200 miles an hour, there's absolutely nothing like it.
Well, we mentioned that there are 2 types of prototype cars out here today, the big fire-breathing GTP cars and the Camel Lights cars. And to give you a little better idea of the differences between the two, we asked Gary Lee to compare them.
To the layman, these cars may look alike, and there are some similarities. This is a Porsche-Fabcar. It's a Camel Light competitor. This is the Porsche 962. It's a GTP car. Now, this car was built in Tucker, Georgia, just outside Atlanta. In fact, it's one of only 2 in existence. The Porsches, of course, come from Germany, but there are some common denominators. Both utilize the 3-liter Porsche power plant. This one is non-turbocharged, has about 350 horsepower. The 962 is turbocharged, turns out about 750 to 775. They both utilize the Porsche gearbox and rear end, the Porsche brakes, and also the same windshield. Now, in the case of most Camel Light competitors, all the spare parts have to come on the transporter. In the case of White Allen, if they need a spare part, they can simply walk over here to the Porsche Motorsports truck and buy their spare.
The race between the 22 car and Bob Wallach has tightened up yet again, and here comes Chip Robinson again into the picture. This is for second place. 22 Cyril van der Merwe, 67 Bob Wallach is now up within about a car length and a half of the 22 car.
So it looks like Bob Wallach is trying to position himself for a run at Cyril van der Merwe. Now look at the overtaking speed here as 3 prototype GTP cars go whipping past 2 of those Fiero Camel Lights machines.
That's Jeff Klein, and behind him Jim Rothbarth in the Spice Fiero cars, which are about 20 or 30 miles an hour slower down the back straight than the big GTP cars.
We are working lap number 33 of 97. And you watch as the battle for second place behind Jeff Brabham's Nissan continues. Cyril van der Merwe's Corvette and Bob Wallach's Porsche, with Chip Robinson creeping up into contention in 5th place in the race right now. Onto the long backstretch, and look at how they hug the road. Vapor trails flying, these engines producing upwards of 800 horsepower. Perhaps even more than 800 horsepower in this car. Jeff Brabham's Nissan, a turbocharged V6 engine. Brabham has led from the starting flag, and he continues to lead here at Portland.
Watch the BC Lions battle the Calgary Stampeders live from McMahon Stadium, Thursday, August the 20th, starting at 9:30 Eastern. It's action only the CFL delivers. CFL blackouts are in effect, so check your local listings.
The following is a message from Canadian Airlines, the official airlines of the Players International.
We've come together. One airline flying to more destinations in this country than any other. One airline in Canada serving more continents than any other. One airline providing the alternative business travelers demand. One airline called Canadian. The spirit takes wing.
Back at Portland International Raceway in the G.I. Joe's Grand Prix, where we're working lap 35, and your leader for all 35 of those laps has been this man, Jeff Brabham, with a red, white, and blue number 83 Nissan. Down the backstretch he goes in 5th gear, reaching, what do you think, Tom, maybe 160 miles an hour?
Yeah, at least 160 down the back straight, very close to 200 at the end of the front straight before going into turn 1.
Interesting that Jeff Brabham, who's had, I would say, a pretty frustrating IndyCar career, is so successful in sports car racing, and yet IndyCars remain his first love.
Well, when the driver gets to the level of Jeff Brabham, it's really almost up to the equipment to see how well he'll finally do in the race. Here he's got equipment that is comparable or better than any other equipment in the field, and his driving level is such that he can take that equipment right to the front and not make a mistake and just sail away with it. In the Indy cars, he doesn't apparently quite have the kind of equipment maybe that Bobby Rahal does. You can see here the difference. Rahal's running in 4th or 5th place here. It's not really, let's say, that good a test of drivers. This car, the 83 Nissan car, might have a significant advantage, I think, both in handling and power over the Porsche cars now.
There in front of him is another one of the Pontiac Fieros. That's the number 6 car of Jim Rothbarth, and whoosh, Jeff Brabham just goes wheeling on past. He has driven open-wheel cars since starting in racing back at the age of about 17. The son, of course, of the great Sir Jack Brabham, the 2-time world champion.
Interesting technique you see there. Jeff has a running right over the curb on the turn 7 there. He just turns left right over the top of the curb. The curb hardly affects his driving.
And here Brabham is about to overtake and put a lap down Moretti in the yellow and red number 30. That's the Buick March. There goes Bruce Levin, who was just passed by Moretti. Levin with a 2-car operation of this race. Bobby Rahal is in his other car. Now there is Moretti ahead of Brabham. And in front of him is Doc Bundy in the 2nd Corvette in the field.
So Brabham is coming up and will lap the 2nd Corvette in the field, which is Doc Bundy. And I think Bundy must be running somewhere between 5th to 7th. So Brabham is already closing in on putting a lap on the whole field here.
It's really good because they're getting close to the halfway point, so that means they're getting close to when the pit stops are going to start.
Let's go down to Gary Lee on pit road.
We're standing here with Robert Hatch, who is the team manager for this Corvette crew, and I have to ask you, you talked about strategy and detuning the car just slightly for qualifying yesterday. You're like 27 seconds behind with the horsepower you have. You're saying you're still going to make 2 pit stops.
Yes, we are. We know we can't make it all the way on one stop, so we're not going to chance it. We're going to stop twice, change the tires twice, and see what we can do.
But you made an interesting observation about the competition. You're saying the Nissan will have to stop twice as well.
Right. I don't think the Nissan can make it one stop running the speed that he's running right now either.
All right, let's check with Marty Reid and see what the camp is saying, whether the Nissan can go in only one stop.
Well, Gary, we're standing right next to the liquid gold, the fuel that everybody's talking so preciously about, and they may be playing poker down here in the Nissan pit. They're going to try and stretch it. They're looking to make it to lap 49 or 50. 47 is what everybody else has been saying they're going to have to pit. If they have to pit at 47, that means 2 stops. If they can make it to 49, they can then go the distance. As far as the Porsches, we checked with Bob Wallach's crew. They will come in at around lap 53, so no problem there. 1 stop and go.
Well, we've got action on the racetrack there. You see Doc Bundy in the 52 Goodwrench Corvette. He had his problems a moment ago as he got passed in a big way by Jeff Brabham, and here it is in replay.
Bundy's moving out just to give Brabham room, and he moved out too far, and he just lost it. He was trying to be polite, and he was getting lapped by a much faster car. He moves to the outside, and here you see him get out. Oh boy, he gets into marbles out there and does a loop.
This track all weekend long has been said to be very slippery, and when the sun gets on it, it gets even slipperier. Right now, the cloud cover is pretty much solid, but obviously the track is still slippery enough to suit Doc Bundy's taste.
It should help the tire wear, because besides fuel, it is also tires that dictates when they're going to make their stops and how many stops they have to make, and that is how well the tires are holding up. With this overcast weather, it keeps the track cool, and it keeps the tires at their maximum traction without overheating and going away.
This fuel tactic that we've just heard about in the pits is going to be very important as we watch the Corvette GTP here, who says that they're going to stop twice. If the Nissan has to stop twice, that puts the Porsches of Bob Wallach and Chip Robinson and Bobby Rahal in very good position, because they're not that far behind the 22 car of Cyril van der Merwe and the Nissan car. Although it's got a 30-second lead, it'll take him a good 30 seconds, even though his pit stop may only be 10 or 12 seconds.
There once again is your leader, Jeff Brabham. Now, Nissan may win the race, although that is certainly an undecided issue at this point. But we can expect that a Porsche, with their unmatched reliability, will finish in the top 10. And if they do, Porsche will win the GTP Manufacturers Championship for 1987 for the 26th time. A great salute to the power of the Porsche name in endurance sports car racing. So hats off to Porsche, but right now the Porsches all have their hats off to this guy, the Nissan of Jeff Brabham. Right now he is competitors. There are only 6 cars on the lead lap as we work lap number 40.
So the critical time is coming up. What we have to see here is whether the Nissan can go the 49 laps required to make it on only 1 fuel stop. So within the next 5 laps, we'll find out how hard the Nissan is pushing his fuel. If he has to go in before lap 49, that means he can't make it all the way.
Now we're being told by our stopwatches that the gap over the field enjoyed by Jeff Brabham has stabilized at just about 26 seconds. Just a little less than half a lap is the gap that Jeff Brabham has over the rest of the field.
Around here, got the time of day. Time to stop, time to say hello. Around here, it's always been that way. The finest people that you ever want to know. And up here around here is O.V. O.V. my friend. You know up here around here is O.V. Around here, our here is O.V.
Bristol Raceway is NASCAR's fastest half-mile track. It's unpredictable and usually takes its toll on drivers and cars. Our Winston Cup Series continues from Bristol, Tennessee with the Busch 500. 5-time winner Darrell Waltrip will be back defending his title, pushing his tied Chevy to the limit. It's one of NASCAR's major races. It's the Busch 500, and it's live Sunday, August the 23rd at 12:30 p.m. Eastern, right here on TSN.
Portland, Bob Wallach puts a big pass on Cyril van der Merwe and moves into second place in the G.I. Joe's Grand Prix.
Well, you were saying, Tom, that you were surprised he didn't do it, and now he did it.
Yeah, he sure did. I thought his momentum was going to take him past a long time ago. This puts Wallach in very good shape, because if the 22 Corvette has to pull into the pits the way he's doing right now, that's going to be 2 stops for him to 1 for Wallach. So Wallach's in very, very good shape. Here comes a normal pit stop for the 22 car.
Let's go down to Gary Lee on pit road.
We are here in the Corvette Richard Goodrich Hendricks Motorsports pit. It will be a 4-tire change. They'll top off the fuel. They had anticipated coming in on lap 41, so we will see at least 2 pit stops for Cyril in the number 22 vet. They go to work now on the left side. The right side tires have been changed. A drink of some liquid being handed in to Cyril. The tire change has now been completed. The door is still open. The door is still open. Now they pull the fuel away. They slam the door down, and Cyril is underway.
And just behind him, you see Doc Bundy pulling in, and I wonder if the crew was ready for him. There's only about 3 guys, it looks like, who are ready to go over to work with Doc Bundy. Let's go down to Marty.
Well, he's turned off the motor, guys, and they're going to be working underneath. There goes the bonnet up. There's something wrong. They have been down on boost since the beginning of the race. The turbo has not been turning out the same amount of power that they had hoped for ever since the beginning. We thought it was all detuning, but according to the pit crew, that it was not, and that's one of the reasons Doc has not been doing so well. You know, you got to remember, this is a makeshift car from all the spare parts, from all the leftover pieces, and we got to swing right around, because coming in, surprisingly, is Bob Wallach. He has not made it the full 53 laps that they had told us. So we've got a big surprise with Bob Wallach turning around right behind us, about 3 pits behind us, guys. So as you can see, all things are breaking loose down here in the pits, and the race could be won or lost, where it usually is sometimes, right here in pit lane.
And this is a surprise. It's only less than halfway through the race, so one would assume if we're going full gas tanks, that a lot of these guys are going to have to stop again. Now, Wallach and his team have tried a tactic before of starting with less than a full load of fuel. They tried it at Laguna Seca, a race that comes to mind that you saw here on ESPN, where Bob Wallach and his crew tried to go with a lightweight car to run out to a big lead. The problem was they didn't get enough gas in on their second stop, and they needed to stop again, and that took him out of the running.
That's more than likely what he has done here, Bob, because none of the other Porsche cars have stopped, and Wallach running right up in the lead would seem to me certainly wouldn't stop unless he was close to being out of fuel, so he might have started with a light load of fuel.
Well, there you see Bob Wallach from Strasbourg, France, a 6-time winner of the prestigious Porsche Cup, worn over in Germany each year by the most successful Porsche competitor of the year. There's a similar award here in the United States known as the Porsche Cup North America. And right now in the lead for that honor is Bryce Cobb by a narrow margin over Chip Robinson.
One problem that Wallach will have, having stopped this early, is that as he gets to the end of the race, when he might want to sprint for the lead, he'll have tires that are pretty old on the car. The other cars that have stayed out will have maybe 10-lap newer tires, and that'll be an advantage to Ray Hall and Robinson toward the end.
Not only that, he may have to to make a stop and go for fuel. Based on my calculations, at about 3.5 miles per gallon, he may not have enough fuel.
Well, either way, up front, Jeff Brabham remains the leader out in front. Now we've got more problems for the Corvette team. As you see, Cyril Vandermerve is back in, and Bobby Hatchacrucci says, pull up the hood. We're going to have to take a look underneath, and that could be tragic. Let's go down to Marty Reid.
Real killer.
Well, that car is open, and Cyril is talking to the guys, and it looks like they're going to have to take the backside off. No, he's going to refire the car. They're going to take it back out without doing any kind of work on it. They talked about it, but we'll have to check in and see exactly what's wrong.
Well, perhaps Cyril Vandermerve thought something was wrong and asked the crew to take a look at it. But he is back out and smoking down the front straightaway, so whatever it isn't holding him back.
That's a real shame, because just a stop and go like that is going to cost him about 30 track seconds. Even though he's in the pits for only a few seconds, the slow down and speed up costs about half a lap here at Portland.
Well, right now he's about to overtake the number 57 car of Neil Shelton, who works at a local Rolls-Royce and Jaguar agency. That 57 car has a unique history. As Tom mentioned at the top of the show, it is a 1983 Porsche-powered March. And whoa, Doc Bundy is at the end of pit road with what looks like is a turbo.
No, not again. He's got the turbo fire again.
He's off of 9. He hasn't reached the pits yet. And he has pulled off to the outside. It looks like he's trying to get out of harm's way and maybe get it fired to cross over to the pits.
That's the racing line. Let me tell you, that's not. He's right in the racing line. That's the exit of the turn.
Remember at the top of our show when he said, if it weren't for bad luck, we'd have no luck at all? Well, the bad luck continues for Doc Bundy out of Gainesville, Georgia, Vietnam veteran, and the number 2 driver of the Rick Hendrick-owned Chevy Corvette team. Well, back underway once again.
Yep, he's back in the race. Turbo fires out, and there he goes, and he's overhauling the Fabcar of Howard Cherry with the Nissan right behind him, ready to put another lap on him.
Indeed, a bold move for Doc Bundy as the Nissan of Jeff Brabham, your leader, came smoking up behind him. Now, they had a little contretemps here a few laps ago, and it looks like Doc almost went off again. Let's take a look at a replay and see if we can see what happens to Doc right here at turn 9.
Locking up the brakes and getting a little out of control, and he must just miss the tire wall over there. Very, very fortunate to miss the tire wall. Spun to the inside, backwards, and he straightens it out. The turbo catches fire about here. Woo, look at that.
It's too bad it probably died. If it not, he'd been able to keep going and wouldn't have missed a beat.
Was that fuel we saw him skidding in, or was that maybe just smoke off the tires? I couldn't tell from our camera angle, but it looked like Doc spun in something. Pretty nifty spin, though, to get it pointed in the right direction.
It could have been oil dry, which they often put down if there's been some fluid, but it really did look like he just locked up the tires. In fact, that's the same turn right there, and I don't see any oil dry down there, so...
Nissan is still behind the 52 car here, so it's...
You know, Doc had just made that pit stop. They may have been able to adjust the boost and be able to get a little more power, and he may not have been used to having the power when he came out of turn 9 and had a little more power than he had before, because now he seems to be able to stay ahead of the Nissan.
Doc Bundy has told me before they have a very short throttle range in that car. It's either all the way on or all the way off, and it's very difficult to feather the throttle in that Corvette. Well, nevertheless, the leader is approaching, and Doc Bundy is in grave danger of going another lap down with 47 complete here at Portland.
Marty has it on that wing. Here's a shot. Henderson made a wild stab for spell. Here's another shot right by the door. Henderson has scored for Canada.
With that goal, Canada maintained its #1 position in world hockey, but the result was a come-from-behind uphill battle.
We're doing the best we can, and they got a good team, and let's face facts. But it doesn't mean that we're not giving it our 150%, because we certainly are.
They call it the greatest hockey series of the century. Now you can own this incredible video cassette and relive the victory time and time again. The Canada-Russia Games 1972. 60 minutes of highlights from the 8 games that shook the hockey world. The next best thing to being there. Order your copy now. Only $29.95 plus $3.50 handling. Use your credit card to call toll-free 1-800-268-1121, operator 69. Call now.
Complete here at Portland International Raceway in the G.I. Joe's Grand Prix. There is your leader, Jeff Brabham in the Nissan, and it's time for our mid-race recap brought to you by Volkswagen. Your leader, as he has been since the very start, Jeff Brabham, is margin now more than a half a lap over the field. Only 2 other cars, Chip Robinson in a Porsche and Bobby Rahal in a Porsche, are able to maintain anything close to the lead enjoyed at this point by Jeff Brabham. There has been but one leader, no changes, and And Jim Downing holds a narrow lead in Camel Lights over Don Bell and Bell's teammate Jeff Klein.
Very critical time here for the Nissan car driven by Jeff Brabham. If he makes it another couple of laps, that means he can probably make the race on one pit stop, making it very, very difficult for the Porsche cars of Chip Robinson and Bobby Rahal to catch him. He's going into the pits now right at mid-race, so this is super critical. He's got to have a good pit stop, get an absolutely full load of fuel. He is out of fuel now. You see the car wobbling back and forth. He is out of fuel.
Let's go down to Marty Reid.
Well, he stops a little bit long, so the guys have got to make a few adjustments. They're going to make the driver change. Jeff Brabham is coming out. Elliott Forbes Robinson is going in. Of course, all four tires are being changed, and you're absolutely right about the fact that they were breathing just fumes when they came in here, so it's going to be super critical going down the last half of this race. Ice going into the cool suit for Elliott Forbes Robinson from the other side of the car now. They're wiping the windshield. We're up to 26 seconds and counting, so they may lose their lead on this change, but if they can get back out and go the distance, it's going to be a big plus for this Nissan GTP team. Waiting for the jacks to go down. Elliott's out and on his way. 38.8 seconds.
Now, they've definitely lost the lead here, but I think Rahal just pulled in right beside him, so
That's
Chip
right.
Robinson would be in the lead right now.
There you see Bobby Rahal, who was in third place. He is also pitted, but I got to think when you know you've got the kind of weapons that Nissan has, Elliott Forbes Robinson is not as concerned about getting back out there quickly as he is about getting all those tire nuts on and getting every last drop of fuel.
You got that exactly right. I mean, they had a 35-second lead. They lost maybe 3 seconds down then to Chip, but you want to make sure everything is right so that you can go the distance without any problems.
So Chip Robinson is now leading the race with Bobby Rahal here in the pits, getting his normal mid-race pit stop, and he's back out on the course. And the next car we'll see in the pits sometime in the next few laps will be the number 14 Lowenbrow Porsche of Chip Robinson.
Let's go down to Marty Reid.
Well, we've got Jeff Brabham with us. First off, you ran so smoothly. You've led from start to midpoint. Were you running out of fuel there? It sounded like you were trying to just get the last few drops out of it.
No, not really. Car's running fine. I think the track's very slippery. The car was very loose to me, and I couldn't believe how slow I had to go, and yet I was still pulling away. So obviously everybody's having the same problem with the track. But the car's running great. Now we just got to keep our fingers crossed.
Well, in other words, you're saying no problem. You'll be able to go the rest of the race on this one stop.
No, because we went over halfway. So we went 3 laps over halfway. So Elliott's got to do 3 less laps than I did. So, you know, I'm just going to go in the truck and close my eyes and keep my legs, arms, fingers, you name it, crossed.
Well, you did a good job. You kept them in the lead. Jeff Brabham, let's go back out on course.
Okay, thank you, Marty. And there you see your new leader, only the second leader in the race thus far, Chip Robinson, the number 14 Holbert Racing Lowenbrow Special Porsche.
The misfortunes of the Corvette and also Wallace has really helped Robinson be able to be there postured to be in second place, and then when the Nissan come in, be postured to take over the lead.
That's always been a trademark of Al Holbert's victories, and there have been 48 of them in the series just for Al. Chip has got one of his own in this car. They are very, very calm, and they are always in position to take advantage when someone else has problems.
Well, they've had the problems this season, unfortunately, although problems for the Holbert team with Robinson driving seem to fall into second-place finishes. They did have a crash. They have had some instances where they haven't finished right up there, but they've had a lot of very strong second-place finishes, which has rewarded them with the points lead at this point in the series.
4 of those second-place finishes, in fact, at Sebring and Road Atlanta, Riverside, and at West Palm Beach. And always when it seemed that they were poised to take a victory, some mechanical gremlin cropped up and denied them. It's been very frustrating for Chip Robinson, who had probably his lowest moment at Watkins Glen. They totally destroyed a chassis. A suspension part broke, put him very, very hard into the wall. In fact, Robinson brought that car back, and it may become something of a museum piece, as Gary Lee explains in a quick fact.
After a devastating crash at Watkins Glen, it had been rumored that car number 14, the Lowenbrow Porsche 962, would be retired. It is chassis number 003. It was built in Germany in 1984. This is its 4th racing season, and it has 14 GTP victories, more than any other race car. However, Al Holbert says he'll put the car back together. It will serve as a backup car for the upcoming street races, and then maybe at season's end, it'll be retired to show car status. Now, don't be confused by numbers. This is car number 14 this weekend, but at Watkins Glen, this car was number 1.
And as car number 1, it suffered a very rare transmission failure. You don't often see that on the Holbert team. They had the front row for that race, but they were not able to finish either car. So it's been a very, very frustrating year for Holbert Racing. We are working lap 55. Chip Robinson has yet to pit. We understand that he will pit on this lap, and when he does, he will no doubt give up the lead to the number 83 Nissan, presently being driven by Elliott Forbes Robinson. There's a look at Chip Robinson out of Old Wick, New Jersey. Had a stellar career running with the old Group 44 Jaguar team of Bob Tullius. Gosh, I hate to talk about it as being the old Jaguar team. You apparently won't be seeing any more of them here on the IMSA Camel GT circuit in favor of a British operation run by the ultra-successful Tom Walkinshaw team in Great Britain.
Remember that the Nissan pit stop was about 38 seconds. So the Lowenbrow team could gain a little bit here if they can get in and out of the pits inside of 38 seconds. But there's half the race left, and that 30-second lead that the Nissan had pulled out is going to be very, very hard for the Porsche team to deal with. But here they go into the pits, which reported they're going in this lap. Here he comes, right on into the pits, making a tight turn out of 9.
Let's go down to Gary Lee in the Lowenbrow pits.
And here is Chip Robinson. There was a discussion between Al Holbert and his driver. He said, is the car handling? Do you like the tires? Chip said, yeah, let's go with the same compound. So one of the few teams that utilizes the tire warming blankets had the same compound all heated up, ready for him to stop the last lap. It is a 4-tire change. They're cleaning off the windshield, topping off the fuel. So actually Chip went one more lap, and the team really wanted him to go. So he should be in good shape now to go the distance. The tire change has been complete, and Chip Robinson is underway.
One thing I noticed about that stop, you saw the little orange marks on the ground. Another typical trait of the Holbert team is no matter who's bringing the car in, they always hit those marks right on the butt.
He made a nice 10-second gain in the pits. 27 seconds versus 37 or 38 seconds for the Nissan. So that gives him a little bit of a chance against the Nissan car.
There you see Elliott Forbes Robinson making his way around, and you're going to need every second you can get to try to catch the Denver, North Carolina native who has driven just about any kind of race car you could name, and you know he likes the one he's in right now.
Can your motor oils survive the punishment today's engines dish out? Circulating it twice as fast, working it twice as hard, breaking it down and causing it to lose its viscosity. That's why you need an oil with the additive that does more to help prevent viscosity breakdown. Castrol XLR, the oil engineered for today's cars. Look for Castrol XLR at these and other leading retailers.
Be at the post with TSN as the finest 3-year-old pacing colts in North America compete for an estimated $150,000 purse. The Nat Christie Memorial Pace returns to TSN Sunday, August the 16th at 5 p.m. Eastern, live from Calgary's Stampede Park. Join us for harness racing at its very best. The Nat Christie Memorial is live Sunday, August the 16th at 5 p.m. Eastern, right here on TSN.
By the mighty Columbia River, we're watching Elliott Forbes Robinson, Jeff Brabham's teammate, who has taken over the number 83 Nissan. And I noticed, Lynn and Tom, during their pit stop, that they are wearing cool suits. Those telltale little tubes came out from behind their helmets. I guess they're probably just wearing the cool hats.
Yeah, the hats are a little about quarter-inch diameter tubes that run cold water circulated from a little ice bucket that they've got in the left-hand seat of the car, and it cools their heads, and it works pretty darn well to keep the body temperature down.
It works very well. I was surprised, though, in my race here at Portland that I didn't need it because it was so cool. But, of course, we have an open sedan. The prototype cockpit is so closed in, depending on how they vent the air into the cockpit. Sometimes it can be pretty brutal there heat-wise. So it's better to be safe and have that hooked up than to not have it.
There is Elliott Forbes Robinson, the only driver who has posted victories in 4 classes of IMSA racing, including the old RS Series, GTU, GTO, and GTP classifications. You know that there's got to be a love-hate relationship between EFR and this car after 2 big crashes this year. including one at Riverside and one at Watkins Glen.
Elliott was seriously injured, actually, in the Riverside crash. He broke his collarbone, did some rib damage, and he got away from the Watkins Glen one without any damage, and hopefully he can finish this race. The wind is picking up here at Portland, and of course there's a constant threat of rain anywhere around the Pacific Northwest, although it looks like the rain will probably hold off for another half hour.
Well, then in that case, rain tires would be on the order, and tires have been a problem for this team all year long, contributing to both of their crashes. And we asked BFR, what about those tire problems?
Well, actually, Riverside was the tire went down suddenly and then blew up. The Watkins Glen incident, I don't know what happened there, still don't. But they did some design changes in the bias tire. We're still running a bias tire, put some changes to it. It seems to be running cooler now, and they say a much stronger tire. I think the downforce on the car is much greater than they had anticipated it was going to be and cause some problems. But I think it's going to be all fixed this weekend, and we should be able to get to the checkered flag.
Well, Elliott Forbes Robinson lapping about 3.5 seconds off of Brabham's qualifying time. And there you see Bob Wallach back in with the BF Goodrich Porsche. That's our camera car. Let's go down to Marty Reid.
Well, the BF Goodrich team had a cut-down tire the last time they had to come in early. It looks like this may be another situation. There is some fender damage on the left front side. We'll check to see. They changed tires on the left side. We'll look to see they're going immediately for that left front tire again. That would be the same tire that cut down before.
Well, that, in fact, would be a problem. The second stop for Bob Wallach might very well take him out of any hope of gaining a victory here at Portland. There you see him talking over the radio to his crew. Maybe some of the words we don't want to hear, but Bob Wallach having a frustrating afternoon here at Portland.
Unfortunately, in these short races, a second or third pit stop is almost always very damaging to the ability to win the race. Bob Wallach is now going to go out there and soldier on and hope that he can stay in the points. His car's been running very, very well. He's raced as fast as any other Porsche out there, but his second pit stop now is really putting him behind the 8 ball.
Those left side tires are really vulnerable because most of the turns on this racetrack are right, which then puts more of a load on the left-hand tires. When you have so much traffic here, you end up driving out of the line more often than you would normally on a racetrack. You can see some of the debris along the inside there. Well, you know, you may have to drive over that to try to pass one of these smaller or slower GT light cars. So you really end up on sometimes on the parts of the racetrack that you don't want to. There might be some debris, and with a overheated tire or a tire that is really soft, it's easy to have a puncture and have a problem. So those left side ones are definitely vulnerable.
Here's the 63 car of Jim Downing, who is leading the Camel Light division. Jim has led almost from the start, which is a very, very strong showing for him with those Pontiac Fieros behind him. He is probably going to run the whole race without a pit stop, as are the second, third, and fourth place Fiero cars behind him. Here is Wallach back in the pits again.
Oh, no, Bob Wallach back in the pits. You see the view from the passenger's side, if in fact there were one. Other crews up ahead taking a look over at the 67 car. Let's go back down to Marty Reid.
Well, Bob Wallach, guys, is complaining about a vibration. We checked, and it was not a cut-down tire. That's what Bob was saying, is that it feels like a tire is going down. They brought him back in. They changed that left side rubber, and it proved not to be the case. So now he's back in. He's got a severe vibration. They think it might be a drive shaft. They're checking that. They're also changing rubber on the right side. For a second, it looked like Bob Wallach was going to climb out of the car. It looked like now he's just getting some reinforcement, some back support underneath his seat, and it looks like he's going to take the car back out. The motor is fired and ready to go. They're putting tires down on the right side, and it looks like he is going to try it again.
You can see him talking while he was in the pit, and that's really one of the best aspects of having the radio is to be able to talk to the crew while you're in the pit without having to try to yell over the motor, and everybody can continue working on the car while you're communicating with them. And I see he's still talking to him now, maybe telling him that the vibration is gone or the vibration's still there.
Well, Bob Wallach once again takes our camera car back out onto the race course. This really has to be a heartbreak for Bob Wallach and the entire BF Goodrich team. We mentioned earlier, they really have a lot of confidence in this Frenchman's ability to set up a Porsche and get it around a racetrack like Portland. We'll be right back.
A perfect day for Patty? Well, she puts on these crazy little running shoes, then she jogs over to the restaurant she owns and checks out the specials. Definitely has a fruit fetish. Always snacking on things that crunch, you know, perfect. And look at her, an angel puss. healthy, productive, a perfect Patty. Participation makes perfect.
Saturday on the Sports Network. Live at 2, it's Major League excitement when baseball's best battle on the game of the week. At 5, the very best in equestrian events, the Grand Prix and the Nations Cup from Hickstead, England. Then live at 8, Budweiser presents the Eddie Reid Stakes from Del Mar Park. Sunday on TSN, don't miss a great NFL preseason matchup when the Bears battle the Dolphins live from Miami's new Joe Robbie Stadium.
Portland and the G.I. Joe's Grand Prix, and the agony continues for Bob Wallach and the B.F. Goodrich Porsche team. Wallach has now climbed out. Young Darren Brassfield will climb in. What the heck, at this point, if you're not in the race, may as well give everybody a shot.
Maybe Brassfield being younger is less afraid than Bob Wallach. I don't know, but apparently Wallach is experiencing severe vibration, and now Brassfield will see if he can handle that.
Well, it's a possibility that they have identified what the problem is. I don't know. It could be an axle problem. It could be something severe that they're just getting Darren strapped in. They wouldn't send it back out if it was something severe.
Well, they're certainly not really hurrying to get him back out once again, and they've got company on pit road. We now understand. There you see the Corvette pulling in behind. That's the 52 car of Doc Bundy. Let's get down to Marty Reid.
Well, the clock is running. They're going to change all 4 tires in this. The motor stalled momentarily, but Doc's got it started again. The problems on this car continue. He's still not got all the turbo boost that he wants. The problem is now he can't get the rear tires on. He had the brakes off, and they couldn't get the wheels on. So now they're finally gotten the signal to him to put the brakes on, and the right rear tires on, left rear's on, and the brakes still lodged in, and Doc's waiting for something. I can't seem to see what is wrong on the other side of the car. Our view is blocked. He's got the tires spinning, and I guess it's just the fact they're waiting for the fuel. That's it. And he's down, and he stalls the car. A little bit of turbo backfire, and finally gets it refired, and he's off. Costly stop, about 45 seconds.
Well, and so Doc Bundy joins Darren Brassfield in the also-ran category here, having problems being competitive with Jeff Brabham, who's Nissan at the hands of Elliott Forbes Robinson right now, is absolutely flying around this race course. But keep in mind, it happened the same way last year, and with 1 lap to go, it all came tumbling down for the Nissan team, so they're not out of the woods yet. As we watch Doc Bundy making his way around in that Chevy Corvette. Now here you see the standings in the Camel Lights division right now. Jim Downing in that 63 Mazda-Argo leads. 1 lap down to him. Don Bell, Jeff Klein, Jim Rothbarth, and Steve Durst are running almost nose to tail. Downing, is 11th overall. The others are following in close order. 1 lap down to him. And here you see behind the Nissan of Elliott Forbes Robinson, there comes Jim Downing, about to try to put another lap on that maroon car. That's Steve Durst in a Pontiac Fiero. What a great day for Jim Downing.
Downing's done a lot of good work on his motor to be able to outrun these Fieros at this straight line track. All season long, the Fieros have had the hex over the Mazda cars, and now it looks like Downing has solved his motor problems and is right on the pace of the Fieros.
You see that bizarre little exhaust there on the lower side of his car there on the right side. That was put on there last year at this racetrack by Jim Downing because of the very severe noise restrictions. You can only run about 110 decibels of engine noise at this racetrack. So to avoid losing too much horsepower, Downing added that long trombone-like exhaust. Now here you see the 01 car of Don Bell, who was chasing
he's in second place now.
In the points, he is now in second place, but he's a lap down to Jim Downing. That's a good example of the Pontiac Fiero chassis that it is said will go up to GTP ranks next year. Over in Europe, they run that car with a Ford Cosworth engine, making almost 600 horsepower, so the car is evidently stressed for GTP racing.
Bell is 2 points behind Downing in the season championship point standings, but Downing is poised here to gain quite a bit, and it's very surprising at this track.
There you see Don Bell, who considers Laguna Seca his home racetrack, raced Porsches in SCCA competition for a long time. And here you see the 79 machine. This is a debut effort for Jeff Klein, who is normally Don Bell's teammate. Klein co-drove with Bell to 4 of the team's 5 victories this year. Bell drove to 1 solo victory, and now Jeff Klein, to maximize his chances, as you can take a look at Jeff there, has, with Don Bell's permission, taken on a second ride in a car owned by Tom Winters.
That's a brand new car. This is the first time it's run, and Jeff Klein put it on the pole, looked very, very strong. but from the early stages of the race, Jim Downing has really run away from the Fiero. Now, it could be that Downing is going to have to make a fuel stop. We don't know about that. It's rumored that the Fieros will definitely not make a fuel stop. So Downing will need every second that he has in the lead if he has to make that extra fuel stop.
That incredible battle between all of the Camel Lights drivers could come to a head between teammates, as there is Jim Rothbarth's Pontiac Fiero, the number 6 car, the 01 car of Don Bell, the 79 of Jeff Klein, and the number 6er of Jim Rothbarth are all maintained by the Spice Company here in the United States. All 3 cars are identically prepared, and they go out and race together. Now, if Klein manages a good performance today, he and his teammate Don Bell, who will run together in races yet to come here on ESPN this year, and we could see an incredible battle between brothers, so to speak, for the Camel Lights Championship. There you see Rothbard being overtaken very quickly by a Corvette and the leader, Elliott Forbes Robinson, in the Nissan. They dive to the inside. Cyril van der Merwe about to be passed by Elliott Forbes Robinson. Well, perhaps I spoke too soon. About to be pressured by Elliott Forbes Robinson. Let's see what happens under braking at the end of the straightaway. They both get by Jeff Klein in pretty good order. Van der Merwe gets on the gas quickly and opens up a lead. I would imagine Elliott Forbes Robinson at this point is driving a little bit conservatively.
I was just thinking that this is no time to do one-upmanship. He did make an attempt to pass there, but the Corvette has incredible horsepower as well as the Nissan, and he's driving his own race and took a clean line and is just driving his own race as he should do with the tremendous lead that he has.
Right, the name of the game for EFR is to just be cool and to lap the car at a very comfortable pace. He can probably, being very comfortable, just keep his distance from the rest of the group, and that's the way to make the car finish. And of course, that's what they want to do and try to get their second victory of the IMSA season in 1987.
As well, keeping a little bit of a spread there helps, I think, when they get onto traffic, because it gives them a chance to react in case somebody does happen to, snap back right in front of them.
And there you see Elliott Forbes Robinson pulls wide, gets a little bit better jump into the gearbox off of turn 9. And whoa, Cyril van der Merwe is going to challenge him. Oh, look out as Cyril van der Merwe holds on, and Elliott Forbes Robinson decides that discretion is, in fact, the better part of valor. 5th place for the Corvette, 1st place for Elliott Forbes Robinson, and you know he wants to hang on to it. We'll be back with plenty more racing from Portland in a moment.
The Power Driver, the Power Wheel, together in one power-packed offer. You get the world-famous Power Driver that powers in any screw, fast and straight. The built-in depth dial leaves the screw raised, sets it flush, even countersinks it, all automatically. Power Driver works with these tiny screws or a gut-wrenching monster like this. And it's yours now, along with the famous Power Wheel that strips paint like magic. Not even a nail can stop it, because Power Wheel cuts, too. It shapes tile, chops through this masonry block, even sharpens a lawnmower blade. Plus, as a special bonus, we'll give you the incredible nail driver, along with this 7-piece nut driver set. Yes, through this offer, you get this unbeatable collection of fine tools. Here's how to order yours.
To order COD or credit card, call 1-800-268-6364 extension J or send $29.95 check or money order plus $3 shipping and handling to Power Combo, Box 747, Station Q, Toronto.
The gold at the end of today's race for perhaps Elliott Forbes Robinson with a substantial lead at this point. A $35,000 payoff plus a $10,000 potential bonus in the Camel Pyramid. Now that's a bonus for first-time winners only. This car of Elliott Forbes Robinson is not eligible. They won it at Miami. In fact, you have to go all the way down to 5th place to Cyril van der Merwe in the Corvette to find a car that hasn't already won the bonus. In that event, it will roll over and become a $20,000 bonus at Sears Point, our next IMSA Camel GT race here on ESPN. But right now, I'm sure Elliott Forbes Robinson would be delighted to just take first place money and make for an airplane. Here you see the Bobby Rahal car. That is the number 86 Bayside Motorsports machine in Budweiser colors today, with a few extra speed secrets, hoping to make Rahal competitive. Right now, he's holding down 3rd position. He is the last car on the lead lap, and Gary Lee has more on Bobby Rahal.
You know, Bobby Rahal generates a lot of attention no matter where he goes because he's won Indy. He's the defending IndyCar national champion, but he's done doggone well in IMSA GTP racing this season. In fact, in 3 outings, he's won twice, finished second once. Right now, he's in 3rd position, and he told me earlier today he'll have at least 2 more outings at Columbus in October, and then Del Mar, the last race of the season. So it's not inconceivable that a guy who's only been in like 5 or 6 races could finish 2nd or 3rd in the point standings.
And that would not be unusual for Bobby Rahal, who is not only an accomplished IndyCar driver, he has done a lot of Camel GT racing. In fact, Bobby Rahal once won the 24 Hours of Daytona back in the early 80s when he was, I guess, known as Bobby Who. He had not yet at that point hooked up with Jim Truman's organization up in Ohio, and since then become the great driving superstar that he is. He's a part of a 2-car team here with car owner Bruce Levin, and we asked him a little bit about their team strategy.
As far as your cars running this week, what's the setup? How will the team strategy be dictated between you and Bruce?
Well, I've told him that he's to block at all costs.
Well, I'm afraid it's going to take a little bit more than a block to help you out today, Bobby. You're going to have to just drive the wheels off that Porsche to catch up with Elliott Robinson. You see the tall plume of exhaust vapors coming out the top of the car. That's a new position for the exhaust on these Porsche 962s. And when you've got a 6-year-old race car like the Porsche, it's only continuing development that keeps you competitive.
Bob Rahal and the Budweiser team, the Bayside team, have had trouble with straight line speed all weekend. They've been beaten by the Nissan and the Corvette.
By putting that exhaust where it is, and there you see the other team car, that's Bruce Levin and his Bayside machine. You see that top hood scoop there? That is for their top-mounted intercooler. Now, Bobby Rahal's car is a little bit different, and we'll have more on that a little bit later in the program. But for right now, there is Bruce Levin, who calls himself the world's fastest garbage man, or now he calls himself the world's fastest unemployed garbage man, having sold a big disposal business, Bayside Disposal, for which the team was named for a number of years. Now it's just Bayside Motorsports, and Bruce Levin is turning his interest to other things, but he has always been a die-hard sports car racer. Now, to compare some of the technological advances, we took a look at both of the Bayside Motorsports machine. Oh, well, we've got a problem on the track. There you see one of the Camel Lights cars. I think that's the 34 car being driven by Kim Mitchell, Kim Campbell and Alfred Mitchell, a couple of Texans, and looks like a simple spin, and he's back underway again once they found a gear.
They've made a number of pit stops throughout the race, so I have a feeling they've been having some problems.
That's the old Argo Mazda car, which is toward the back of the pack in Camel Light. The Mazda motor has been fading a little bit lately, but as we said earlier with Jim Downing, it's come on.
Well, it's certainly been doing okay for Downing. But getting back to my point, we took a look at the 2 Bayside Disposal entries in the race, and Gary Lee took a look at what makes them so very different.
These are both Porsche 962s of the Bayside Disposal team. However, there's a big difference in aerodynamics. This car here has the center-mounted intercooler. The turbocharger is mounted back here. This necessitates this big air scoop. This bubble disrupts the flow of air across the rear deck. It also necessitates a longer rear decking here, a longer exhaust pipe, and a lot more wing. We have about 7 inches here as opposed to about 2 inches right here. So let's see what we can accomplish by moving the intercooler and also the turbocharger. By moving the intercooler to the side of the race car, it affords better balance, allows us to move the turbocharger up about 2 feet. So the air intake is over here. No big bubble. There is smoother airflow across the rear deck, and this decking is shorter, allowing the air someplace to go. It drops off. We also have a shorter exhaust here, which technically should give us more horsepower and a lot less wing. This wing is flatter. We had about 5.5 inches of wing over here about 2.5 inches. So technically the car should be smoother in aerodynamics and should have just a tad more horsepower because of a shorter exhaust.
Well, right now, Bobby Rahal appears to be the fastest car on the racetrack. There's the 85 car of Bruce Levin, running more wing and the more traditional Porsche exhaust system. The 2 cars are presently 3rd. That's Rahal, and 8th, a couple of laps down. That is Bruce Levin. Here you see Bruce making his way down. You see Garbage Man across the front of that car.
It says unemployed Garbage Man, actually.
In fact, Bruce Levin, one of the great characters, great car owners, a great sportsman in IMSA Camel GT Racing. And you saw Chip Robinson go by him in a blur right there. Bruce will admit it. He says, I'm a qualified amateur running against professionals, and I love it. His cars are incredibly well prepared by crew chief Walter Gerber and the crew. And as Bruce will tell you, some of the best racing drivers in the world who want to come IMSA racing call him month in and month out, asking about the availability of a second seat to race with Bayside Motorsports.
He held his own pretty good there in the infield section against Chip.
I would say so. Not bad for an old man, as Bruce Levin would no doubt say. And here you see Bobby Rahal just smoking down the backstretch. In fact, he will probably approach his boss in just a moment. I think they're at about the same point on the race course.
Looks like Rahal has closed up on Chip Robinson just a bit and is making a run to try to get second place. Rahal can't be more than about 10 seconds behind the number 14 Lone Porsche of Chip Robinson.
There you see him making his way across the start-finish line. Bobby Rahal. We're working lap 38, and there is your leader, Elliott Forbes Robinson of the Nissan. Remember, they got within a lap a year ago.
TSN presents the 1987 Vancouver International Triathlon. Start by swimming 1.5 kilometers. Then secure a bicycle and ride for another 40 kilometers. Then finish off with a 10-kilometer run. That's what the Vancouver International Triathlon is all about. Watch Monday, August the 24th at 9 p.m. Eastern for triathlon action.
The first in a 10-part series of professional rodeo competition. If you think these cowboys aren't real athletes, you better take a closer look. The finals are hosted by Hadley Barrett, Bob Feist, with reports from Pam Minnick, the former Miss Rodeo America. Watch the fun and the thrills of rodeo from the national finals. Wednesday, August the 19th at 11:30 Eastern, right here on TSN.
At Portland, there you see Elliott Forbes Robinson. We have 82 complete laps. The leader will come around to finish lap number 83 in this event scheduled for 97 laps. Now the 22 car, there's Cyril Vandenberg on pit road. Let's go to Marty Reid.
Well, they're not changing tires on this stop, guys. Just a matter of getting fuel and getting a clean windshield for Cyril Vandenberg. It's a matter of just putting enough so that he can go the distance. In fact, you can see Bob Hatch just looking at the fuel line, just waiting to see the trigger line, saying, okay, he just punches the fuel man, that's it, it's on air.
Now this is an important stop for Vandenberg. He had unlapped himself. He became the 4th car on the lead lap. But now he's going to have a little bit of extra time to make up. And there is Bobby Rahal, is flashing lights. Hey, buddy, you're getting into the fast lane here. My, what a pass. Now Rahal puts a lap on Vandenberg and motors off into turn 3.
Rahal is chasing Chip Robinson for second place right now. We timed him at about 7.8 seconds behind Chip Robinson's car, so they've got 15 laps to go, and looks like a good race shaping up for second place.
How do you flash your headlights at 160 miles an hour?
They got a little, it's just a little thing like you have on your normal car. Sticks out of the driver's column there, and he's able to splash it.
Because, oh, here comes the Nissan now. This is a development. We've got a problem. Now we hear it might be a right rear tire problem for Elliott Forbes Robinson of the Nissan. Could lightning be striking twice?
He had about a half a lap lead now, so remember, 30 seconds he's got.
Let's get down to Marty Reid.
Well, they are looking at the left rear and right rear side. They're talking to Elliott through the radio communication system. They're checking the intercoolers as well to see if there's any kind of fluid or any kind of paper or anything blocked back in there. Got a problem from backside of the car now. And they're throwing some water into the intercooler area. Elliott's looking in the mirrors trying to find out when he can go. And it looks like he stalled the car. No, he's just trying to get it going, and he can't seem to get the communications right. And now it's going to be a matter of taking the time to find out exactly what's wrong. He's saying something's not right. And to tell you the truth, this one's even got me stymied, guys, because now they're going to have to bring the bonnet up. And you know what that means. Big trouble for the Nissan.
I'm wondering if it could be a rear axle problem because of the fact that they can't have a power to get away. And if it was the vibration or something he thought was the tire. It's possible that it's something in the rear axle and won't go.
We're watching here on the front straight, and here comes Chip Robinson right on by the Nissan, and Chip Robinson now takes the lead from the Nissan car. So the number 14 Lowenbach Porsche might be getting lucky this race.
Well, Skipper, you can swell with pride. You said this might be Chip Robinson's day. This is the race that he dearly wanted to have. And should Chip Robinson win, he already has the points lead by some 26, 27 points over Bryce Cobb, who is presently running in 4th position in the race. And Chip Robinson might be doing his best right now to extend that string of winners of the G.I. Joe's Grand Prix who go on to become year-long Camel GT driving champions. So Chip Robinson makes his way down the backstretch, and we have 85 laps complete here at Portland.
Can your motor oil take the heat? When today's engines reach high running temperatures, motor oil can thin out, break down, and leave engine surfaces unprotected. But Castrol XLR has been engineered to maintain a lubricating film, even at extreme engine temperatures. At Castrol, we believe if you can't take the heat, get out of the engine. Castrol XLR, the oil engineered for today's cars. Look for Castrol XLR at these leading retailers.
Great Canadian amateur boxers from the past. People such as DeWitt, Hilton, O'Sullivan, Walters. OV presents today's amateur stars when they compete at the OV North American Amateur Boxing Championships. Expect names such as World Cup Super Heavyweight Lennox Lewis and Asif Dar. It's live from Roy Thompson Hall in Toronto, Saturday, August the 29th at 7 p.m. Eastern.
Back in Portland, where the Nissan that has led this race from the start up through lap 83 is stuck in the pits, and now they're pushing it away. What a heartbreak for Jeff Brabham and Elliott Forbes Robinson. And this man, what an uplift for Chip Robinson out of Oldwick, New Jersey, who has taken over the lead in the Holbert Racing Porsche.
We are getting a report from the pits that it's engine problems on the number 83 Nissan car of Elliott Forbes Robinson. There she goes back into the paddock. What a sad day for a great thoroughbred fast race car. And the lead turns over to Chip Robinson in the number 14 Al Holbert Racing Lowenbrow Porsche car.
And it's anything but a gimme at this point. The gap is but 7.1 seconds between Chip Robinson and a 6th car. There's Jim Rothbarth, who was running 4th or 5th in the lights category, who was spun off the track. But those 7 seconds separate Chip Robinson from Bobby Rahal in the number 85 machine. And Rahal is smoking around this racetrack. This one is anything but over as Rothbarth gets back on right in front of the numbers 57 machine of Neil Shelton.
You can bet that Rahal knows he's only 7 seconds behind and is going to start to just push as hard as he can to try to win the race, because that's what Bobby's paid for, is to win races.
Now Marty Reid is standing by with Elliott Forbes Robinson. Let's go to Marty.
It's not hard to describe the disappointment on this man's face when the motor had to be shut off for the last time. What happened?
Not quite sure, but the water temperature went up, and by the looks of the water underneath the car, I think we must have lost a radiator or something. The Nissan motor was running super. I had backed it down and was just running at a conservative pace, and the water temperature went up.
Do you ever think luck's going to come back into your camp?
Boy, I don't know. I sure wish it would. We have crazy stuff happen. I don't know what happened today, but we need some luck is what we need, because the car is running so well for so long. We just need to finish here someday.
Well, disappointment in the Nissan camp, but they'll be ready for our next event, Sears Point.
That's one thing you can say about Don Devendorf's Electromotive Engineering Company. They keep on getting up off the floor. Well, here is your leader, Chip Robinson, who's got to be thinking about Bobby Rahal. Let's take a look right now, however, at what happened to Jim Rothbarth, who was running in 4th place at Camel Lights when this transpired.
Just got a little bit too much power, I think, going into that turn, and was really glad that the Corvette driver, whichever one that one is right now, was on their toes, because
was Cyril.
Was that Cyril?
Yeah.
Cyril Vandenberg getting by as the number 6 car slides right off. The old rule in race driving is if somebody in front of you spins, drive right at him, because if he keeps spinning, he won't be there when you get to where he is. Does that make any sense?
Sometimes. That time I think we just slow down.
Yeah, really. Okay, here is Chip Robinson, and we're looking behind him for Bobby Rahal. It's Porsche versus Porsche here in Portland.
With 9 laps to go, the last gap we had between the 2 cars was about 7 seconds. So it's going to be very problematical if the number 86 6 car, Bobby Rahal, can find an extra second a lap, but boy, he's sure going to try with 8 laps to go.
Here it is, 8 laps to go, and 2 cars ahead of where he is right now is Price Cobb, who is running in 3rd place. Now that the Nissan is officially out of the race, Price Cobb moves from 4th up to 3rd, and he might very well be lapped before this one is over by Chip Robinson. Keep in mind that these guys are not only battling for the Drivers' Championship, Robinson and Cobb are 2 and 1, respectively, in the battle for the Porsche Cup North America. We've got about a gap of 10 seconds between Robinson and Rahal. Apparently, Bobby's being held up in some traffic and dropping back a little bit, but it's not over yet, folks.
He's been holding about a 7-second gap for about the last 4 or 5 laps, and I'm sure depending on traffic, that can make the difference.
The relative speed between Robinson's car and Rahal's car is very, very even. It'd be very hard for Rahal to find that extra speed, but he's going to be pushing as hard as he can. Also, Robinson is coming up behind the number 16 Dyson Porsche driven by Price Cobb, and I think that Robinson will be very, very careful in passing the Dyson car because he wants to make sure that he keeps this lead. I'm sure all fingers and all toes are crossed on the Lowenbrow Al Holbrook Porsche team.
Well, I'm sure Chip Robinson would love to have the luxury of being able to drive along conservatively and preserve this win. So many times this year, victory has been snatched away by a mechanical problem occurring in the last laps. There is the interval to the 2nd place car of Bobby Rahal. Chip Robinson cannot take it easy. He has got to go all out in the hopes of holding off the 1986 Indy 500 champion. We'll be back to see how the whole thing works out as Bobby Rahal attempts to run down Chip Robinson.
The nicest thing about an ice cream sandwich isn't the ice cream and biscuits. The nicest thing about a snack and a half isn't the oatmeal cookies or chocolate tasting coating. And the nicest thing about a Chippers isn't the chocolate chips. No, the nicest thing about an ice cream treat is the look it puts on your face. Treat yourself to the ice cream sandwich family and treat yourself to a smile.
The CFL on TSN. Every week, the champions of the gridiron run, pass, kick their way to victory. Big city rivalries, east-west showdowns. Watch the BC Lions battle the Calgary Stampeders live from McMahon Stadium, Thursday, August the 20th, starting at 9:30 Eastern. It's action only the CFL delivers. CFL blackouts are in effect, so check your local listings.
Back in Portland, there you see Chip Robinson crossing the start-finish stripe with just a few laps remaining in this G.I. Joe's Grand Prix IMSA Camel GT race.
6.5 laps now to go, and Bobby Rahal is really putting the pressure on Chip Robinson. The gap is narrowed down to under 7 seconds, I think. You see Bobby Rahal just coming into the picture on the backside of the course, Chip going around turn 4, and here comes Rahal right behind him, so it's no easy matter for Chip Robinson.
Lynn, you mentioned that they've got radio, so right now Chip knows where Bobby is, and Bobby knows where Chip is.
That's right. I think Bobby's probably going to be a little more inspired because he can see him. Chip should, not going to be looking in his mirrors in the rear. He's got his busy looking up ahead, making sure he can make his way through traffic, and he can use traffic to his advantage. There might be an opportunity he can get by a light car and place a couple of light cars between he and Bobby Rahal. So it's just it's called driving skill and concentration, no mistakes.
Rahal's not going to wait for the Camel Lights cars. He'll use them like billiard balls.
Okay, let's go down to Marty Reid and Bobby Rahal's pit.
His uniform.
Here comes Rahal around turn 1, onto the backside of the course, and the gap's down to a little less than 4 seconds, 3.9 seconds now between the 86 Budweiser Porsche of Bobby Rahal and Chip Robinson in the 14 car.
Okay, we had a little problem with the microphone Gary Lee is using. Let's see if we can talk to Gary now.
Walter Gerber is the team manager for Bobby Rahal. He's on the headset, and I saw a big grin a couple of laps back. You still think you have a shot?
Yes, we sure do, and I'm not sure who is in Holbert's car, but if it's Chip, we sure have a shot because he's known to be weak towards the end of the race, so we have a good shot with Bobby in there.
You have a good set of tires right now.
Yes, we have a very good set of tires, so we're going to go for it.
Under the mustache, you can see the big grin. They think the Bud car can run down the Lowenbrow car for the victory.
Yeah, and here it comes. Look at him. They're less less than 200 yards apart now. This is setting up to be a fantastic finish. Bobby Rahal driving right up the tailpipe of the number 14 Porsche's Chip Robinson. His chip goes into turn 1.
Okay, now the problem is, first he can catch him, then he has the task of passing him. We have 4 laps remaining. 4 laps of this 1.9-mile circuit, less than 8 miles, has Bobby Rahal as he tries to run down Chip Robinson. Well, I don't know if Chip's young heart can bear one more cliff-hanging finish in a Camel GT race. He has really had a time of it this year.
I think that last lap, Chip stabilized the distance just a little bit. Bobby is really coming up on me. He actually gained just a little bit. Chip gained 0.3 of a second on the last lap, so that's excellent. That's probably just a traffic deal. And here comes Rahal with the Camel Light leader, Jim Downing, in between the two of them.
0.3 of a second doesn't seem like an awful lot, but on the racetrack, it's hard to get it, and it's hard to lose it. Right. Or easy to lose it, I should say, and hard to get it.
There's a look at Whitney Gantz and Fiero Moretti in that Buick-powered March. They had problems early, but this is a car that's had problems finishing through its entire career. Recall Jim Crawford's horrendous crash at the Miami Grand Prix earlier this year. But they have got that out there. It's been constant thrashing to get the car into the race. They got it out there, and Moretti and Gantz have combined to give it a great run today. They are well down in the field, but they've got the car apparently to the finish line.
Here's our leader coming up behind some traffic now, although those are GTP cars in front of him. That's Doc Bundy, and right in front of Bundy is the number 16 car, Bryce Cobb. So they're not going to hold him up.
There you see it. Chip Robinson, the lap's running down. There will be 2 to go when they come around this time.
Chip has made a slight gain by my eye over Bobby Rahal now. Here comes Bobby into turn 7 through turn 8, setting up for turn 9. Bobby's got a clear field in front of him. He gets on the power, 2nd gear, 3rd gear, and right up through the gears. And here comes Chip, forcing his way through the Camel Light cars in front with the Dyson Porsche and Cyril van der Merwe in front. Here comes Bobby Rahal.
Chip has a little advantage here because he can actually draft the faster GTP cars ahead of him, where Bobby was there back by himself. He didn't have anybody to draft, so that was a definite advantage there for Chip.
The ironies are so great. Last year, it was Robinson in a Jaguar battling Al Holbert when the Nissan went out with but 1 lap to go. Now it is Robinson in the seat of that famed number 14 Holbert Racing Porsche, and he is trying to hold off one of the greatest race drivers in the world, National IndyCar champion Bobby Rahal. But the margin is expanding. It's now up to 4.2 seconds.
A very important instant in young Chip Robinson's career. If he can hold off the Indy 500 winner, he's going to make a big impression on everyone who watches car racing, because Chip has heretofore not been able to do this. Rahal is pushing very hard. He's gaining again. So the finish of this race is very exciting and very critical for young Chip Robinson.
Ironic, too, that Chip Robinson does a little bit of road racing in the IndyCar series. He was an open-wheel champion running Super Vs before moving up to the big sports cars, and now he's in there with maybe the best IndyCar driver around, Bobby Rahal, and they are duking it out here on the last lap of the G.I. Joe's Grand Prix at Portland International Raceway. That's turn 3. 6 turns remain for Chip Robinson. There you see the gap. There's the gap. It's now down to 3.6. And Bobby Rahal has a clear shot. There are no cars between him and Chip Robinson right now.
See that little bit sideways there? Bobby is definitely working hard. They're both squeezing every ounce of horsepower and traction that they can get out of those race cars.
Here he comes up on turn 7, the little chicane before the very critical turn 9.
Chip Robinson. Let go of my arm. I know it's exciting. Chip Robinson, turn 7, turn 8.
Cleanly into turn 9. Back on her toes.
Race drivers are all.
Come on, Chip.
Here comes Robinson. About to make a prognosticator out of Tom Blackaller as Chip Robinson. The checkered flag is out and waves for Chip Robinson, the winner of the 1987 G.I. Joe's IMSA Camel Grand Prix. There you see Al Holbert on the right, Alvin Schminger of Andile, Porsche Engine Company. It is the first victory for the Lowenbrow Special without Al Holbert behind the wheel at some point in the race. The first victory ever in the long career of IMSA's greatest winner.
And you can see that Al is very, very happy for his driver, Chip Robinson. There'd be a lot of joy in the Al Holbert camp.
And very appropriate that Porsche should win the GTP Manufacturers Championship with a victory by one of their cars. And in fact, perhaps the greatest of the Porsche cars. Certainly the greatest in IMSA Camel GT competition.
And Bobby Rahal played a perfect role in this, pushing as hard as he could with a good set of tires, and Chip held it off, and here comes Bobby up to congratulate Chip. Wonderful race.
Here is our lights leader, and all of the excitement of the GTP race. We certainly cannot ignore the fact that Jim Downing, who put it all on the line trying to go the whole way without a pit stop, he did it. He has got a victory, and that will pull him well out front in the battle for the Camel Lights Season Driving Championship. Well, we'll be back to bring you all of the results of today's race and talk with our winners in just a moment.
Play Walt Disney World Baseball Magic at your A&P Super Dominion stores today. Win up to $10,000 instantly with over $1 million in cash and prizes available throughout the regular baseball season. You could win one of 80 Walt Disney World trips for two to Orlando, Florida, provided by Treasure Tours, the Florida specialists, celebrating their 60th anniversary. There are no richer tasting coffees than Nescafe. This week's feature product at all A&P Super Dominion stores, Nescafe Instant Coffee.
The Sports Network presents the 1986 Grand Prix and Nations Cup from Hickstead, England. The Grand Prix prior to the Nations Cup looks to be the most competitive ever at Hickstead. 8 top teams are competing, including the French, last year's winner. Join us Saturday, August 15th, starting at 5 p.m. Eastern for the Grand Prix and then the Nations Cup from Hickstead, England. It's right here on TSN.
Well, it's been a great race here and certainly a great finish. Let's go down to Victory Lane now, where Marty Reid is standing by with our happy winner.
Happy is not the word, guys. Chip Robinson, I got to ask you first off, what went through your mind when you saw the Nissan parked?
I never saw it, believe it or not. I saw a P1, and I didn't know what happened, whether we got by him on he had to make a second stop or a flat tire, so I never saw him stopped. And, you know, I figured when they saw P1, we were all right, but I wasn't sure if he was going to be catching us or not.
And then as the laps dwindled down, Bobby Rahal tried to make a push on you.
Yeah, I saw him coming, and they kept me really well informed of where he was, and he wasn't really making enough time. I wasn't too worried about it. I was a little concerned if I got hung up in traffic or something, he might get me, but following the Corvette and I guess it was Price, they kind of cleared the way for me through traffic, which helped a lot.
Well, a super performance. Congratulations. As you probably know, the man who has won this race the last 9 years has gone on to win the driver championship.
Well, I'll tell you, the Lowenbrow special was just fantastic today. It was so consistent, was there the whole race. It was fantastic.
Let's go down to Gary Lee.
Well, here is a guy that's had one incredible season so far and some limited action. 2 first and 2 second. Bobby Rahal, congratulations.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's we were a little lucky today, but I guess all the Porsches were lucky today. If the Nissan hadn't fallen out, I don't think anybody would have seen him. But we drove hard. We thought we could catch Chip, and we got close, but just no time left.
You told me before the race you'll have at least 2 more appearances at Columbus and Del Mar, and it is not inconceivable you could finish maybe 2nd or 3rd in the point standing.
Yeah, I mean, I think we must be about 3rd or 4th now. After today, I think we were 4th or 5th, and I mean, we just keep going, I guess. You know, I can't believe we're as high in the standings as we are. I mean, done only 4 races, but, you know, we're there.
Not a bad way to take an off weekend from kart racing to go out here and finish 2nd at Portland.
And a fine busman's holiday it is. Our congratulations go out to Bobby Rahal and to Chip Robinson, the 3rd straight victory for that Hobart Racing chassis. We'll be back to sum up the results and say so long from Portland right after this.
Silver Eagle Records announces the most explosive record package of the year, TNT. The Temptations. And the 4 Tops. Hit after hit, it's the original music for the Big Chill generation. Never before available in one great collection. The Temps and Tops together. To order, call the number on your screen. What's the same? Oh, song. I can't get next to you, baby. Can't help myself. I love you and nobody else. TNT, the Temptations and the 4 Tops on 3 LPs or 2 long play cassettes, just $16.95. And now, for the first time on compact disc, just $19.95. Write or call now.
Portland International Raceway, where the spoils are being divided from today's running of the G.I. Joe's IMSA Camel Grand Prix. We'll give you a look at the top 5 in the GTP division. Chip Robinson with that first victory since the season opener at Daytona. Bryce Cobb with his third-place finish still loses ground to Chip in the battle for the GTP Drivers' Championship. Cyril Vandermeer a 4th, and Jim Adams with another good finish in 5th place. In the Camel Lights category, Jim Downing gets his long-sought first victory of the year. With his runner-up finish, Don Bell will leap up ahead of Chip Meade in the Camel Lights Driving Championship race. With 3 laps to go, Steve Durst passed Jeff Klein for 3rd position, and Jim Rothbarth comes home 5th. Tom, that Camel Lights battle just keeps getting closer and closer.
You bet. The top 3 finishers, Jim Downing, Don Bell, and Steve Durst, are now 1, 2, 3. Downing with 139 points, Bell with 132, and Durst with 128. It's going to be a great finish for those cars.
Lynn St. James, your closing comments.
I'll tell you, quality, not necessarily quantity. This was a quality field, very, very tight race, exciting race, kind of a purist race, if you might say.
For Marty, Reid, and Gary Lee along pit road, Lynn St. James and Tom Blackaller joining me here in the announce booth. I'm Bob Varsha. So long from Portland International Raceway in Portland, Oregon.